Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Marco DeRay Show, everyone. It is Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. Thanks for tuning in to get all the relevant groundbreaking news here in the United States, around the world, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Please be sure to hit that like button, follow the show, hit the notification tab, and share with as many people as possible to help spread the truth. And I always appreciate when you do that. I can tell you are because these downloads are starting to increase by a lot. So I appreciate you so much for doing that. It really makes me happy to see that. Let's get ready for the best hour that radio has to offer, uncensored and ready to go. As most of you know by now, I'm a California political refugee now. I'm based in New York for the time being. I went from one extreme of liberalism to now another, of course. Now Kathy Hochul is my governor. I went from Newsom to Hochul. Look at that. What a change, right? Now, New York isn't much better, if at all. But California has really declined since COVID. And it's simply a mere fossil of its former self. And, I was thinking yesterday after the show, I went to the Richard Nixon Presidential Library the Friday before I left on Labor Day. And, I got to see where Nixon really came from. Because the property where they created this library is the exact property where the home that he was born in, and it's still there today, by the way. You can see that when you go to the library. But you see the modest upbringings, which, made Nixon who he was. He grew up there. He grew up in Yorba Linda, then close by in Whittier, California. And you see how he morphed into the political genius that he became. Now, many historians also cite that Nixon was probably the smartest president they'd ever met in the later half of the 20th century. And by the way, without a Richard Nixon, we wouldn't have had a governor or President Ronald Reagan. Just thought I'd share that with all of you Reaganites out there. So I asked myself, how do we go from men like Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, Earl Warren, Goodwin Knight, George Duke-Majan, Pete Wilson, to Gavin Newsom? How have we declined in mental fortitude and acumen? So much that we have a zero in the governor's mansion, hell-bent on power, really power for himself, the glory of being, this figure that he believes himself to be, even though he's a complete putz, and not protecting the rights of the people of California. How do we get here? How do we do this? Well, there's several answers to that. But I just want to say, by the way, if you're ever in Southern California, the Nixon and Reagan libraries are a must for history fanatics. I got to tell you, they're fantastic places to go to. Wonderful libraries with such great information about each of these two individuals. I think if Gavin Newsom had a library, but what would it be like? I wonder. What would they put in? Would it be as useless as the Biden presidential library they might create someday? I think if Gavin Newsom had a library, it would be, you'd have to put the crap map that San Francisco had a couple years ago. They actually had an app. You can go on and document. You are standing next to fecal matter, human fecal matter. So they'd have the, you'd walk into the library, you'd see the crap map. Oh, that's fantastic. Scientific, great, wonderful. Silicon Valley-ish. You'd have the room with the homeless tents. You could see that as well. The homeless population. And you'd probably see a foreclosure sign on the building because, running up the credit, running deficits, spending, of course. That's all Gavin Newsom knows how to do. Yeah, that's what the whole library would contain of. That and a whole bunch of other BS that he tries to spew to you. Now, yesterday, I went over the 30 ways Gavin Newsom destroyed California and should never become president of the United States. Not ever. I didn't even get to finish my list yesterday. Can you believe that? The entire show was dedicated to how much Gavin Newsom sucks at his job. I had no accomplishments. I seriously looked, too, by the way. I honestly went through. I said, what has Gavin Newsom accomplished? Nothing. There's nothing there to go over with you. I tried. I tried. Even though I hate the guy, I tried. There is nothing you can point to say, you know what, this was a really good job. Good job. Way to go. Hey, way to go, Gavin. Fantastic work. We'll pat you on the back for that one. Nothing. There's nothing there. He was useless on the Board of Supervisors that he was appointed to by Willie Brown in 1997. As mayor, he sucked. Both terms he was there. He sucked as lieutenant governor, and he sucks as governor of California right now as he drives California into the ground. Into the ground! And that's why you're seeing so many political refugees, like myself, having to leave the great state of California. How do you screw California up, by the way? How do you do that? All you have to do, really, if you're a governor, you're ensuring the rights of the people, you're making sure the economy's in check, and you're making sure all these governmental programs that you foresee are up and running. That's it. That's all you have to do. Modest things. It's not terribly difficult. It's a busy job, of course, but it's not that difficult. If you have people that, again, can do the job that you've appointed them to. Now, yesterday we went over 21 of the 30 points that I've brought to you. So we're going to continue with part 2 today. We're going to go over these next 9 or so. There's so many more, too, by the way. I picked the top 30, I guess. So we'll go over that. And we'll get into the rest of the news that we are dealing with soon thereafterwards. So, point number 22, wildfire efforts. Yeah, Gavin Newsom. Now, there was this whole entire investigation from Cap Radio and NPR's California. Newsom, this whole nonsense is an astounding number, 690%. The number of acres treated with fuel breaks and prescribed burns. Yep, Newsom claimed that 35 priority projects were carried out as a result of his executive order, which resulted in 90,000 acres being treated, right? That's what he says. Okay, great. But the state's own data shows that the actual number of these treated burns, he goes on, he lies to NPR and what have you. There's only about 11,399 acres that they actually treated in this entire state of California. Now, Newsom refuses to do controlled burns. Again, this is where the forestry department actually burns brush and debris, dried brush and everything like that, as they do in other states. And, they do this to remove the dead brush. They don't do any forestry work either. They won't remove this stuff, So what happens, like what we saw in 2023 and 2024 in California? We had extremely wet years. And as a result of that, you get much more vegetation, much more foliage, right? And then when that dies, it becomes a hot box for more fires, should anything happen. That's why what we saw in the Palisades, in Eaton Canyon, what we're seeing right now in Europa Valley, with those fires currently burning, they get out of control fast. Then you add the Santa Ana winds to it, then you have yourself a disaster in and of itself. And then you add in the idea that you don't have fire hydrants that have water accessibility. You have a whole other problem in and of itself. Then it gets out of control. That's why they showed him he's standing there looking at a fire in someone's backyard in the Palisades. Oh, yeah, there's a fire. Yeah, great. Why don't we have water in the fire hydrants, Gavin? He had no answer. He said, well, it's a local issue. I'm sorry. You have a reservoir that is completely empty, that you are in control of. It's for LA County. And there's no water in these there's no water accessibility in these fire hydrants. They let the Palisades burn. And I'm sorry, you can't figure out a way to squash these through any type of aerial control as well. You can't figure out how to put these retardants that would stop these fires yet. I mean, it's 2025, folks. I think we could stop a forest fire fairly quickly. Again, using all sorts of methods, not just simply water, which, again, should be plentifully available. You're right next to an ocean, for God's sakes. And we can't seem to get water in our fire hydrants. That's Gavin Newsom in a nutshell right there. Can't figure out how to stop preventing forest fires. He can't figure out how to clear dead brush, do the necessary control burns, and again in these high-risk areas in California. And again, this is why you're seeing these insurance companies leave the state. They're saying, look, we're not dealing with this. You're having, again, these areas upon areas where they're getting stuck up in these 90,000, 100,000 acres burned. Homes and structures destroyed. Think about how many structures were destroyed in just the Palisades alone. I think it was 8,900. And again, I told you yesterday, there's very few growth in terms of rebuilding being done to this area. It's indicative of Gavin Newsom. He slacks. He doesn't care. It's not his prerogative. Even the wealthy people in this area who probably voted for him in Palisades, in Malibu, he doesn't give a damn about them. He doesn't give a damn they've lost everything. He doesn't give a damn they're getting barely anything in return. I told you yesterday, he's allowing a foreign buyer to come in and buy up lots of land for $65 million. I think it was 9 or 10 different lots on the Pacific coast. That's who Gavin Newsom supports. That's what he wants. Yeah, there he goes. So, can't figure out how to do fire control. Can't figure out how to put water in fire hydrants. Can't stop it. Apparently, I mean, we've always had fires in California. Look, it's not anything new. It didn't just happen under Gavin Newsom. We've had this for a very long time in California. But look at the devastation, the damages that we're seeing right now. And look at the lies that he tries to tell people. Saying that there's 35 priority projects being carried out where we're doing these control burns. No, there's not. Overstated by 690% what he claimed he'd done in terms of these controlled burns. Again, people are looking at this saying, yes, we want to control this brush. We want to get rid of it. When it dies, we need to get rid of it, remove it. That way it's not, again, growing out of control so quickly. I mean, it's like you light a match. I mean, it's going to start igniting and it's going to go quick, especially with these winds. And another thing, too, we have these these telephone lines, or you have some mentally ill lunatic starting these fires. We've seen this before, by the way. We've seen these people getting arrested trying to start fires just as recently in Runyon Canyon. Just starting a fire in the middle of nowhere. And he blames climate change for this. It's absolutely pathetic. All right, moving on. Let's talk about water storage in California. Yet again, another disaster for Gavin Newsom. Can't seem to capture the water. Even though, like I said, we had 2 very, very wet years. Now, Newsom has not delivered on 1 drop of water to the farmers, the farm workers in the state, as, California crops are being devastated now by drought. In fact, he's actually trying to cut off water from one of the regions in Northern California called Potter Valley, I'm told. I mean, this is insanity. Right before their harvest. Just telling me he's cutting off their water just because. There's no reason to do this except to put these ranchers, these farmers out of business. That's it. He had 2 wet years, very wet years in his governorship. We received record amounts of rain. In fact, some of our dams and our water storage facilities were just at the top, at the brink. They were almost full. So we could have kept even more water. What he actually did, this is what the genius Gavin Newsom did. Because there was so much water being collected, the genius that he is, he releases 20,000 metric tons of water right back into the Pacific Ocean. Fresh water they can save for, again, drier years. That way we have adequate water supply that goes to the aqueducts and what have you. He refuses to develop any type of water desalination plants on our coasts that we can also transport that water to these water facilities. They treat the water afterwards and store it afterwards in these reservoirs. He won't do it. Kowtowing to the environmental nut jobs of the state. As I told you yesterday, the Sierra Club is one of them. Believing that the Delta smelt is obviously much more important than drinking water for California citizens. Yep, that's Gavin Newsom in a nutshell in that. So he won't build any type of new water structures, even though, again, the state population has increased. It hasn't been done since 1980, by the way. It hasn't even been expanded. They haven't even built new facilities. Jerry Brown in his first term in 1980, the last time they even expanded any one of these water projects. He won't do it. It's going to upset the ecosystem for, I guess, a fish. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable, except it's believable because it's Gavin Newsom. So whenever you see Gavin Newsom, it's synonymous with stupidity. Outrageousness. That's Gavin Newsom for you. Homelessness. Gavin Newsom's probably number one claim to fame here. You know, California does lead the state again in homelessness. Number one, California. Way to go, Gavin. Despite California spending approximately $37 billion of your taxpayer dollars on homelessness programs over the years. And by the way, Gavin Newsom in 2003 pledging to end homelessness in 10 years. I guess he, just like these climate idiots who say, we're going to be out of oil in 10 years. The ice cap's going to melt in 10 years. All these ridiculous remarks they keep making over and over. Gavin Newsom's remarks on homelessness are equal to that. Now, again, despite this massive investment, $37 billion, the number of homeless in California, guess how much it's risen to? Right now, it's around 178,000 people. I mean, it's not funny, but it's just ridiculous. It's getting worse. It's not getting any better. It's getting worse. Yeah, just go search up California 10 cities and see what you see. It's absolutely astonishing. I mean, major city after major city, we have 10 cities? Yep, if Gavin Newsom becomes president, that'll be his slogan right there. He is the tent salesman of the year, Gavin Newsom. Again, they have so much money they put in towards each of these individuals, and they buy them tents. They don't purchase anything like, I don't know, say, mental hospitals, treatment facilities. No, why would you do that? That would just solve the problem. Then they can't force the government to give them any more money. See how it works? Gavin the grifter, right there, homelessness. Law and order. That's another problem. Public safety is an issue for many Americans. We want a safe community for our families, for our children, everybody else, our neighbors. He identifies with criminality, Gavin Newsom. Lawlessness. Defund the police. This is Gavin Newsom. He backed Prop 47 and Prop 57, but he was lieutenant governor, of which Kamala Harris wrote the language on these, by the way, to, again, confuse the voters, which allowed people, this is Prop 47, allowed people to steal up to $950 worth of items, and it would be labeled as a misdemeanor. And again, a lighter sentence, if at all, for criminals. So what happened after a while, when this began to get out of control, especially at the start of COVID, people are just ransacking these businesses. They're arresting these people, and then later on, they're just releasing them back out in the public just moments later after they're being booked because they can't hold them anymore. Then you add no cash bail. I mean, it just becomes a problem in and of itself, as you can see. California became, this hub for crime. Prop 57, we talked about this yesterday. I believe we were talking about how he was releasing criminals early from their sentences. Prop 57 allowed him to do this. Again, he gets some soft judges in there. Of course, you see the problem there. Releasing criminals early from their sentencing. That's what Prop 57 was. Making everything safer? I don't think so. Now, he refuses to fund Prop 36 currently. This passed in 2024. I was one of the 68% that voted for this, which actually repealed Prop 47. So people said, we've had enough of this. People are stealing goods from these businesses. They're having to lock up, shampoo and hair gel and razors. And, it's ridiculous. We can't take this anymore. We've never seen anything like this before. Again, demanding that something be done about this crime. And instead, what he does, he tells the counties, you fund it. So this initiative that he's supposed to fund, that passed overwhelmingly by all Californians, of any political party, by the way, he says, no, the counties will do it. You now have mobs of criminal juveniles still ransacking businesses in California right now. And when the cops are asked about this, they say, hey, we can't do anything about it. We can't prevent this. We can't do anything. We're shorthanded already. Now, it was ridiculous during COVID. Again, people at the Grove in LA getting robbed at gunpoint while eating meals at lavish restaurants. You see these street takeovers where they, spin the cars out, by the way. Taking over intersections. Just crowds of people all around on our city streets that we pay for. And you see night after night this human debris in the middle of the streets, spinning these cars out, blocking intersections so people can't go through. And in fact, I've seen people in Oakland actually attacked as a result of telling people to stop doing this. You see them having to close the 6th Street Bridge that was just built, by the way. Brand new. Had to get shut down as a result of all this chaos that was happening there. Absolutely ridiculousness. And a lot of things, too. You're seeing crime rates in every single category going up from robbery to homicide to property damage to domestic violence. All these categories are simply going up. It's very, very sad what's happening in California. And again, nothing's being done about it because they've deballed the police. So there you go. That's Gavin Newsom again on crime and law and order. He likes the criminals. He likes them. He likes the street takeovers with the illegal aliens in them. He loves it. Yep, you can't cross and go down the street because, again, you have either people taking it over for these, I don't know what they're called, donuts that they do. Some schmuck did that on my street, hit my truck, by the way. Totaled my neighbor's car, by the way. Was the guy ever caught? Of course not. Why would he be caught? They don't care. It's not on their prerogative. They don't care. When I say they don't care, I'm not saying the police don't care. I'm saying that, they're only going to do so much. Yep, that's crime in California. That's another reason why people are leaving. They can't take the crime. They can't take the theft. They can't take, again, the aggravated assaults on people that we're seeing. These storefronts, these businesses, destroyed. Why would you start a business in California if it can just be ransacked with these teens, right? These teen criminals that come in, and the cops go, I can't do anything about it. Why would you do that? Why would any sensible person do that? They wouldn't. That's why you're seeing a lot of these businesses starting to close. By the way, the most anti-Second Amendment governor in the nation, Gavin Newsom, he has signed 70. That's right, 70 gun control bills in the state of California. Just in his term alone, 70 different anti-Second Amendment gun laws. Now, Newsom lied on this podcast he was on. He received a Sig Sauer handgun, and he's saying, I'm not anti-gun. I'm just for gun safe common sense, right? That's what he said. He says, I'm challenged by large capacity clips in urban centers, weapons of war, sometimes outgunning the police, like he cares about the police. But otherwise, man, yeah, there you go. See, they have the 60s lingo there, right? But otherwise, man, people have the right to bear arms. I got no ideological opposition to that at all. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. This liar, this putz. Signed 70 anti-gun bills into law. He actually proposed a 28th Amendment. Did you know this? In the federal Constitution? Yeah. Most of you don't know about that. Old Gavin Newsom. I can't believe it. Actually lies. And he actually came out and tried to pass this thing called the 28th Amendment proposal. I can't even believe that I have to read this to you right now, but I will, because I want you to I want you to understand who this putz is. This is what he will bring to the federal government if he ever were in charge of it. And it starts off by saying, this is in Sacramento, right? Sacramento, California. It says, today, Governor Gavin Newsom proposed a 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution, like he cares about the Constitution, to enshrine fundamental, broadly supported gun safety measures into law, while leaving the Second Amendment unchanged and respecting Americans' gun-owning tradition. The governor's proposal guarantees common sense constitution. See, this is what pisses me off. They use the word common sense as if it's like, oh, yeah, this makes sense, right? That's how they try to word the language, to get you to go get on board with it. Oh, it's common sense. You shouldn't carry a weapon of war. This is what he wants to do, though. Guarantees common sense constitutional protections and gun safety measures. See, they pretend to love the Constitution. They pretend to follow the Constitution. And then, of course, they butcher the Constitution as a result of this. These gun safety measures that Democrats, Republicans, independent voters, and gun owners overwhelmingly support. I don't support this. Including universal background checks, raising the firearm purchase age to 21, instituting a firearm purchase waiting period, and barring the civilian purchase of assault weapons. So the word assault weapon, just so we're all clear, this means absolutely nothing. Now they're going to say it's a weapon of war. What the hell does that mean? Well, seriously, what does that mean? They can make up anything. Hey, you can use a handgun in a war. Do you see how this light language, preventing you from getting largely what they're talking about as an AR-15. Again, it's ridiculousness. The founding fathers would be appalled by this, by the way. A waiting period to get it. First of all, what's going to change in that waiting period? I heard this on Fox News recently. They were talking about the lunatic tranny that shot up the Annunciation School over in Minnesota. And they were saying, you know what, if they had a longer waiting period. First of all, when you pass a background check, and I'm not opposed to background checks at all. I'm very much opposed to a universal registry of guns. Because then the government has every idea where these guns are. Which could be a very bad thing if the government turns tyrannical. But this whole waiting period nonsense, you pass that check before you pay for that gun and are allowed to, again, continue on with the purchase. They run a background check. They run that you're obviously a U.S. citizen and what have you. You're showing your identification, which, again, in California can mean absolutely nothing because they've given over 1 million IDs, thanks to the DMV, to illegal aliens. And that's just the low number on that one, by the way. That's how that lunatic. That's how that driver who did that illegal U-turn in Florida got his license in California, a commercial driver's license in the state of California back in 2018. So it doesn't even mean anything if you're giving it out to everybody. See, they don't care about this. They don't care about any of this. That person go purchase a firearm now because they have a legal identification document. So they don't care about this. They don't care about people identifying themselves. All they care about, again, is the barring of certain types of weapons. They want to prevent that. And again, they just one thing on the chopping block. First, it's these assault weapons, which, again, you can assault anyone with any weapon, for God's sakes. It's a soft language that gets you in there. Oh, yeah, it makes sense. Why do we need an AR-15? Why do you need an AR-15? Then it's why do you need a shotgun? Why do you need a long rifle? Hey, why do you need a handgun? Why what are you doing? Come on. Then it's why do you need a clip with 30 round mags in it? All this other nonsense. And then that gets reduced, which happens in California. You can only get a magazine with 10 rounds in it. You see how this starts to happen? Then you can only have 5 rounds, then it's 2 rounds, then it's 0 rounds. Then you got to go and get a background check to buy ammunition. It's ridiculous. It's all a way for them to make more money off you, too, by the way. Just keep that in mind. And by the way, high sales tax on firearm owners in California, by the way. Just thought I'd share that with you as well. He finishes off saying, though, the POTUS, our ability to make a more perfect union is literally written in our Constitution. Yeah, not by people like you, asshole. Unbelievable. Excuse my language. So today I'm proposing the 28th Amendment to the United States Constitution to do just that. First of all, he's in no position to even do this. The hubris of this guy. Gavin Newsom, a state governor, is proposing an amendment to the Constitution? But he'll get all these lunatic gun control freaks on board with this. You better believe it. And if he ever gets in there, he will definitely implement something along those lines. Imagine that, being an American citizen, an adult, and you're being told you can't purchase any type of firearm. Raising the minimal age to purchase a firearm to 21. Look at this, mandating universal background checks to prevent truly dangerous people from purchasing a gun. First of all, let's stop and think about this. Now, are there times where these people legally purchase firearms? Yes, there is. Okay. But these hardened criminals that you continue to see out there in the streets of LA, New York, Chicago, DC, you name it, St. Louis, they're not going through the legal channels to purchase firearms, folks. They're just not. That's the reality of the situation. And by the way, they're not going to gun shows either and purchasing them illegally because you have to go through the same exact channels that follow state law for the state you're in. So again, it's just stupidity in and of itself. Instituting a reasonable waiting period for the gun purchase. What does that matter? If I'm legal to buy the gun on the day of, why do I have to wait 10 days to go pick it up? What is that going to change? They say, well, if someone's really angry, they're going to stop getting angry after 10 days. Give me a break. Give me a break. So ridiculous. And then look at this. Barring civilian purchase of assault weapons that serve no purpose than to kill as many people as possible in a short amount of time. First of all, any gun that you purchase in America today is a semi-automatic weapon. That means you pull the trigger once, and the bullet is released from the chamber. So, again, a handgun could really fall in this category, too. I could fire off a handgun probably faster than I would in rounds from an AR, if I'm being honest with you. Look at this. Look at this dunce. Weapons of war our nation's founders never foresaw. Again, it's stupidity. Any weapon that was used in war, the founders wanted the American citizens to have. That's just the truth of the matter. You say, well, they only had muskets back then. And guess what? Everyone was able to own a musket, weren't they? They had several other guns as well. That's usually the rifle that they used during the war. Again, it's just based on lies. They don't understand history. They don't care about history. All they want to get is control from you. That's it. That's it. All right, folks. Again, I'm trying to get through this as quickly as I can because I have so much more to go over today. So let's continue on. Newsom, point 27. He also supports illegal aliens in the state of California, calling them his people. Now, what he really means by this is he means they're his voting bloc. He refuses to work with ICE, among many other things. The Trump administration, particularly, whom he hates and bashes constantly. He actually refused to work with the Trump administration to deport these illegal aliens, calling California a sanctuary state. Again, which violates his oath of the U.S. Constitution that he swore. So he doesn't care about that aspect of it. He recently gave illegal aliens in California, not the taxpayers, by the way, using taxpayer dollars, though, of course, $250 million for illegal aliens, only for illegal alien. If you're a citizen, you can go straight to hell, to purchase and access American healthcare services. That's Gavin Newsom for you. By the way, if you're against the transgender surgery nonsense, Gavin Newsom is definitely not your guy. Listen to this. Newsom signs 5 transgender bills that are completely vile, by the way, with zero morality, making California a safe haven for children to come to California to receive these trans surgeries. That's what they're called. Now, of course, we know that you can't change whatever sex you are. That doesn't mean anything to Gavin Newsom, of course. So again, if you're a parent that doesn't want your child to be engaged in this mental illness, too bad. Under AB 957, which he signed into law, get this, a parent could lose custody for not affirming or agreeing to a child's claims about their gender identity. And again, be charged with child abuse. Isn't that nice? So again, if you're, say your child thinks they're the opposite sex, we'll just throw that out there. And your child comes up and says, I'm the other sex. You can't say, no, honey, you're not the opposite sex. That's considered child abuse. Now imagine that. The state will now decide what's best for your child. So it's state rule. Now he is one of the most anti-parental right parents in this country. Probably in American history. I'd have to say Gavin Newsom probably takes the cake on this one. And, one more, just in case you think I'm joking about this. He signs into law SB 407, introduced by LGBTQ WXYZ plus minus equal sign senator from San Fran scumbag Scott Wiener, who's a complete creep, by the way. I have no problem saying that over the air. absolute creep, absolute vile human being, belongs in jail in my estimation, would ensure that unless all potential foster parents are willing to affirm LGBTQ gender and sexuality in foster youth and any gender transitioning, they would otherwise be prohibited by the state from becoming foster parents. So if let's say you're, an older couple, your kids are out of the house, you want to foster a child out of foster care, and you're deeply religious, or you're just a normal human being, and you say, this is just not right. I'm not going to do this to this child. You will not be able to have a foster child in your care. So these two weirdos, again, who have an obsession with the sexuality of children, by the way, it's really creepy. Probably because they hate everything that God created, I would have to assume. And of course, children are innocent, and they want to do whatever they can to confuse children into thinking, under this LGBTQ umbrella, that everything's normal, even though it's all a mental illness. And of course, these, kids get to thinking that this is normal behavior. They can pretend they're the opposite sex. They want to pretend they're a dog, get on these pharmaceutical drugs, which you're really beholden to the rest of your life if you start doing this process early on, or at any point for that matter. You take the drugs, chop this off, sew this on, and there you go. You have one more child that can't reproduce. There you go. It's fantastic, right? They've also approved these books, by the way, approved for elementary school children with slang for the use of words for your genitals. And it's really sick. It's absolutely sick. By the way, don't put your kids in these public schools. This perversion that goes on here. If this is happening in your child's public school, you need to take them out. You need to take them out. By the way, there was a huge win for this as far as some of these books. And Temecula Valley Unified just recently. These parents went to the school meeting and raised hell about this. I mean, you give these Dems an inch, they take 10 miles on this issue. So stay away from it. It's not right. And it's, again, it's just to confuse your child. As I said to you once before, a child, when they're in this age group of 0 to right around 10 years of age, they're what's called a theta brainwave state. And all that simply means is they can't really create this rational, concrete thought. So if you tell a child, hey, you can jump off the roof like Superman, they're 5, they believe you. They don't understand the reality of the situation around them. So if you tell a 5-year-old, a 4-year-old, yeah, you could be the opposite sex. Oh, you think you're a girl today, Jimmy? They believe you. They believe that's normal. They believe what you're telling them. And again, over time, these ideas get wired in their brain, and it becomes a concrete thought for them eventually. So this is why this is happening, younger and younger, and you're like, you can't believe it, but this is why they're doing it. This is why they're doing these things. So just keep that in mind. So if they're having or celebrating, during Pride Month, for God's sakes, get your kids out of these schools. Don't send your kid to the schools. That's Gavin Newsom on that. Now, Gavin Newsom also, again, he never disappoints when he's destroying everything. Gavin Newsom also signs pro-sex offender and pedophile bills, again, written by the pervert Scott Wiener, yet again, never fails. It's like all this jerk does is write bills about perversion and crimes against children, doesn't it? Doesn't it? Isn't that what you're getting from what I'm telling you? Again, you can look all this stuff up. Look up all these bills. If you don't believe me. Maybe if President Trump opens up Alcatraz again, he can, he can be the first inmate there. Him and Newsom. 2 peas in a pod. Now, in saner times, this would never fly, of course. But again, thanks to years-old indoctrination, anything goes in California. So this disgusting, this vile, this ungodly immorality abomination could actually pass and be signed into law. It's ridiculous. So Newsom signed in SB 145. Write that down if you want to read up on it. This lowers the penalties for adults who have sex with same-sex minors. It's ridiculousness. I can't believe I'm reading this to you. So, for example, this means that the new law allows, for example, if you're 24 years old and again, I'm just using the language here, and you have intercourse with a 14-year-old, you could actually escape a felony conviction and the requirement to be registered as a sex offender as long as a judge deems it okay. Which, again, in California, there's no shortage of lunatic judges out there. So an adult can sexually assault your child, and then they can go free, so long as they're within this 10-year span of age between the victim, of course, and the offender. They don't have to register as a sex offender, and again, that's just fine with Gavin Newsom. That's fine with the lunatics in Sacramento and a lot of these judicial courts. What do you think this does in the mind of a mentally ill person, by the way? Now, it makes them, like the homeless or the hardened criminal or illegal alien, flock to California. And who would want to live in a state where these pedophiles can run free and do this? Who would want to raise a child in this type of climate? Parents, listen to me. Know where your children are at all times. I don't care if you're in California or anywhere else in the nation. And again, where and whom they're with at all times. But do you, my listeners, do you want this vile anti-child abomination to become law in all 50 states? If you put Gavin Newsom in that office, you'll see that happen on a much larger scale. He'll protect the pedophiles. He'll protect the sex offenders. And he'll allow this perversion in every single state in the nation. I don't think you want that. All right, last but not least, finally. I think I'm almost through the entire show again. I can't believe it. Can't believe it takes this long to talk about this POTUS failures. Some 1.3 million Californians, I guess I'm a part of that number or adding on to it now, have left California. There's 1.3 less Californians now in this mass exodus out of the state since this jackass has taken over as governor. Yep, U-Haul's very happy about this, by the way. They're loving Gavin Newsom. He's their greatest salesman, by the way. Never in California history has the state even lost population since its founding in 1850, when it became a state first. It only took Gavin Newsom to get the governor's mansion. And now people with money that are able to, and businesses that want to thrive, are leaving in droves. And again, it's only going to continue because Newsom's reign of terror is not over. Still going strong, where he signs these ridiculous laws. And he's really hoping you won't remember any of this by 2028. That's what he's really hoping for. Now, when he gets on that primary stage for the first time with that big smile and the nice suit and the slick back hair and the charismatic words and the hands flapping every other which way like he does now for some reason, like his vile aunt, never forget that he is a chameleon. Never forget that he is a World Economic Forum cutout. Or that he's a Getty Oil money puppeteer. Like Kamala Harris, he will sell out to the highest bidder. And he will destroy this country like Obama and Biden never could. And that's all I have to really say about Gavin Newsom today. I know this was very long and some of you are not in California, but there'll be more later. And again, I will never let this piece of human debris walk right into that White House and destroy this nation like he destroyed the beautiful state of California. So I've got to get this information out to you. There are other things, too, I could talk about. The poverty rate in California, 15.4%. Ridiculous number. Absolutely appalling. I could talk about the parental rights to abstain from having your child receive a vaccine in California to enter public school. That's gone under Gavin Newsom. He signed that into law, too. No medical, religious freedom to do so, even though that's your God-given right. Again, there's so many other things I could mention to you, but this is really the top 30 that are really, really shocking for Gavin Newsom. And again, the list will go on as, again, 2028 approaches. I'll make a list of all this and put it out there at the time. But that concludes part 2. It took only, an hour and 45 minutes to talk about 30 of Gavin Newsom's failures. And I really didn't even expound too much on each and every one of them, which again is pretty sad and appalling, I'd have to say to you. So there you go. Share that with friends, folks, that tell you Gavin Newsom's great, or Gavin Newsom make a great president, or that they like Gavin Newsom. All these things are backed up and verified, by the way. So take a look at those, share them with friends, and please get that information out there. All right, let's get into the other aspects of our news, finally, right? This isn't just the news, and, now that I'm in New York, I can really look into what's happening and seeing all the chaos that's occurring. New York now says that physical activity increases risk from COVID and health guidance to circumvent FDA. I mean, I had to read this twice. I couldn't believe it. So 5 years after COVID, after these lockdowns, after this ridiculousness, they told you not to engage in physical activity outside your home, not to go outside, not to get sunlight or fresh air. That fresh air was bad and you had to wear a mask, of course. And again, possibly, and I would have to say absolutely, facilitating in these adverse events, that lead to greater health conditions. And now the Empire State, much like the Golden State did too, is explicitly warning residents that exercise is a threat to their health. I just want you to think about that for just a moment. Exercise is a threat to your health. I mean, I've never heard anything like this before. Again, baseless, means absolutely nothing. The claim that physical activity is an underlying medical condition that increases a person's risk of a more severe COVID is again being pushed out by the New York State Department of Health's guidance to pharmacists and physicians now on how to circumvent Trump's administration policies so that all New Yorkers ages 3 and up, regardless of their health, can get COVID vaccines. So the vaccine's fine, even though the COVID vaccine doesn't prevent the transmission or any of the such of what a regular vaccine would do. Exercise is bad. Eating properly is bad. Taking supplements is really bad. Just take the vaccine, shut the hell up. If we tell you to sit at home, close your business, do that. Don't go outside. Don't even look outside. Don't look out the window. Just let life pass you by. Take the COVID vaccine and become a host, producing spike proteins, for God's sakes. That's what they want from you. I mean, again, this is being pushed out by physicians in New York, New Jersey. I mean, this is really, really appalling, folks. Really appalling stuff that they're trying to push out. This misinformation being pushed out by your departments of health. Again, based in zero science. There's nothing that would indicate that physical activity is bad for you. In fact, the exact opposite is true. So again, they try to switch everything in terms of reality. Up is down, down is up, black is white is black. Good is bad, and bad is good. Everything you're seeing with this push, is absolutely appalling. And they actually have one of the people that posted this, they received this information again from the Department of Health. They said, I've never seen any Department of Health encourage off-label prescriptions ever. The physician identified as Michelle told this whistleblower, she said she's baffled by the physical activity warning, your moderate health that keeps you healthy, keeps your cholesterol low, keeps your blood pressure low, is what's actually putting you at risk for severe COVID. I mean, no. Again, none of this is based in any reality, folks. So please ignore these. Don't follow what these politicians really are doing and what they're saying to you. Ignore it at all costs. And that's all I have to really say on that. Whew, can't believe it. I can't believe the lies that are being pushed out there. Now, speaking of lies, this is the Gateway Pundit. You know, the other day, Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia said something really appalling and upsetting to me, of course, saying that the founding principle of the United States and Declaration of Independence is extremely troubling. And again, he was attacking our God-given rights. Now, I hear him say this, and I think to myself, this makes sense for a Democrat. This makes sense for an autocrat who simply wants to create laws over the citizenry based on, again, their ability to gain more power. Why do you think Gavin Newsom is trying to pass a 28th Amendment to butcher the Second Amendment? This is why they want this. Because they don't believe in God-given rights. They believe in the state. That's all they believe in, Democrats. So, again, in these opening words of this speech that he had, I don't know where he gets this from, but this attack. I want you to take a listen. This is what he actually had to say. Take a listen.
The notion that rights don't come from laws and don't come from the government, but come from the creator, that's what the Iranian government believes. It's a theocratic regime that bases its rule on Shia law and targets Sunnis, Baha'is, Jews, Christians, and other religious minorities. And they do it because they believe that they understand what natural rights are from their creator. So the statement that our rights do not come from our laws or our governments is extremely troubling.
That's extremely troubling to Tim Kaine. That our creator creates our rights. That's amazing to me. Has he ever read the Declaration? Has he ever read anything that the founders have written? Now, I think Joe Biden would disagree with him. I think Joe Biden would disagree with him. Well, you tell me what you think.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Oh, we know the thing, Joe. What are they talking about? What are they talking about? Let me read part of the Declaration to you. It begins by saying, when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of the nature's gods entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, take a listen, Gavin, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Do you think Gavin Newsom's read this? Do you think Tim Kaine has ever read this? Do you think they understand this or care about this? You know, John Adams once stated, he said that the Constitution is for a religious group of people. And of course, at the time, he was referring to Christians, because they are the ones who created this nation. They were all Christian men. The left tries to say they were deists. They didn't really care about religion. They read books about science. And they were religious, all of them. They were. Were they perfect? Of course not. But they were all religious men who believed in these provisions of the Declaration, of the Articles of Confederation, and later of the Constitution itself, that created the freest nation on the earth. Tim Kaine doesn't believe in that. Bernie Sanders doesn't believe in that. Elizabeth Warhead. Who else? Gavin Newsom, Tim Walz, Kamala Harris, Hillary Clinton, I mean, all of them. They don't give a damn about the Constitution. They don't care about your rights. Like Reagan said, it seems like each and every year, more and more of our rights are just being taken away from us. And he's absolutely right about that. We've got to understand what our Constitution means. That our rights don't just come from man. That are not just created in government. There is actually rights that we have that have been given to us by God. And of course, they're referring to the Christian God, the God of the Bible. Now, if that offends some people, well, the hell with it. That's the truth. But we need to understand this, and we have to defend this because, again, right now, the attack on Christians in this nation from 2018 to 2024 was up 730%. And now Donald Trump has actually come out and said they've actually got to create some type of committee that are protecting Christian rights, of course. And again, looking into a lot of these anti-Christian attacks that, again, barely ever get mentioned. So, again, I'm happy to see that aspect happen. But, this has to stop. This is a Christian nation based on Christian values. We're not under Sharia law, Tim. We'll never be under Sharia law or any other type of law. We are a Christian free nation of individual rights. That's what we are. And it would do you a lot better if you understood that. All right, I wanted to go over this next article. I doubt I'll have enough time to really get into it too deeply, but this is so ridiculous to me. This young woman that was killed in North Carolina, I believe she was on a train, if I'm not mistaken. This just shows you how idiotic this nation has become, of course. This young 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, her name escapes me right now. What is her name? I think it's Iryna. Oh, geez. Iryna Zarutska. Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it. She gets on a plane. She gets on a train, and she sits down. She's on her phone. She got her AirPods in, and the black man behind her, who's got a rap sheet longer than my entire body, out of nowhere just takes out a knife and proceeds to stab her. Stabs her to death. Covered in blood, he goes to get off the train. He's dripping blood, by the way. That's how violent this attack was. And he says to himself, and it's heard on the camera, he says, "I got the white girl." Is anyone in the news media telling you that this is a hate crime? That a hate crime has been committed against this young 23-year-old from Ukraine? By a piece of human garbage with 14 prior arrests for violent crime to his name? I mean, look at this. Is just sickening. Unprovoked, plunging a blade into the carotid artery of her. Oh, my God. Oh, my Lord. It's just disgusting. Disgusting. This is what happens on our public transportations. Nobody over the weekend was speaking about this. I saw it over social media, of course, that this violent attack took place. Didn't hear it in, NBC, CBS, CNN, MS Nobody Cared. None of this. None of it. I didn't hear from anybody. Didn't hear it on Moron Joe's show. Yep, says, "I got that white girl." This is a hate crime, right? If the roles were reversed, you would definitely categorize it as such. But the part that makes me the sickest about this, so first of all, the whole thing makes me sick to my stomach. It should not be happening. The legacy media stays silent about this. They don't care. First of all, this happened in August, by the way. We're just finding out about this now. Again, if it wasn't for social media, we'd probably never hear about it. Thank God for the right-wing media that's actually covered this and exposed this. And expose these liars. They haven't done anything. By the way, the mayor ought to resign. Comes out and thanks the news media for not reporting about this. What a piece of garbage this is. What a piece of... We have a right to know what's going on in our city streets. And pieces of garbage like DeCarlos Jajuan Brown Jr., who has no right to be in civil society, by the way, somehow is released So he can go out and do this and harm this young woman who did absolutely nothing to him, by the way. And what's even sicker is that a GoFundMe was actually put forth immediately after he was arrested yet again. I mean, this is a cut and dry case, folks. This guy clearly just out of nowhere stabs this woman to death. She sits in front of him, doesn't say a word to him. She's on her phone minding her own damn business. And this creep, this murderer, this thug, this criminal, this waste of life stabs her right in the neck, killing her. I have no words for this. I don't know why this person was released back out into society. He has no right to be there. Now look at this. GoFundMe terms of service explicitly prohibits fundraising that could raise money for the legal defense of anyone formerly charged with an alleged violent crime. Good on GoFundMe for removing this. I don't understand it. You saw the same thing when Austin Metcalf was stabbed in the heart following. They raised, what, $500,000 for this? Carmelo, whatever the hell his name was. We still didn't hear about that case, right? Oh, he gets out on bail. Family's living in a mansion. Oh, everything's okay there, right? Stabs a kid in the heart for no reason. Absolutely no reason. How sickening of a society we're living in nowadays. It's absolutely appalling to me that this could happen. Absolutely appalling. Folks, hope you enjoyed the show today. I know I had to go a little bit overboard with Gavin Newsom, but I got to tell you about what's going on here. That way you understand what's happening in our society. That way we don't have more Gavin Newsoms in office. That would probably allow things like this to happen much, much more. Folks, thanks for tuning into the show. Share with some friends. Appreciate when you do that. Make sure you keep your house in order, storing up food, water, ammo, tools, supplements, medicines, anything you need to be self-sufficient. And I will see you tomorrow on the next Marco DeRay Show. Until then, be good, stay busy, God bless.